From Boston, welcome to Off the Bench.
Good evening and welcome to Off the Bench. My name is Jeff Pratt and tonight I am joined by Drew Carter and Leon Liu. We'll be talking about the college football season and discussing whether the season is worth the risk of playing. But we start tonight in the NFL. To no one's surprise, the NFC is once again loaded with talented, legitimate contenders. While the Seahawks are the only team with a single loss, there are 4 other teams with only 2 losses in the conference. Guys, in your opinion, who is the team to beat in the NFC?
Well, I'll turn this back into a question on you. Did you see the game last night? Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers are for real, and backed by Rodgers' resurgent season, which has seen him throw, up until Thursday's game, 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, the Green Bay Packers are poised for another run for a Super Bowl. And honestly, I don't really see a ton of teams beating them outside from the few fluke losses that they've already had this season. But Leon, I'm curious to see as to how any other team in the NFC could really have a chance against the Green Bay Packers.
Well, I like to go with the Seattle Seahawks in the sense that I think they have the better quarterback compared to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. I think this is the best football Russell Wilson has ever played, leading the NFL in yard and having 26 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions and completing 71% of his passes. I think comes postseason, I trust more in Russell Wilson than Aaron Rodgers, and I think that this Seahawks team will have a legitimate chance on the road to Super Bowl.
And that's a fair point on Russell Wilson, but have you seen that Seahawks defense? Dead last in terms of yards allowed per game, and they're getting torched by pretty much every team they've played. They've given up 23 points to every single team that they've played so far on their schedule, and that's included some really awful teams like the Atlanta Falcons, who couldn't barely get a win by any other team for the most part. When you get to the playoffs and you're playing elite offenses, you don't have the time to rely on your quarterback to score every single time down the field. You need your defense to step up and get you a few stops. And I don't know if Russell Wilson has the ability to go down the field every single time and score and then have his defense give up a touchdown on every single subsequent drive.
I understand that, and I think we still have some really good players on defense, including the likes of Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, who's still really getting used to playing this Seattle defense. Now, of course, Seattle defense is no longer doesn't have that vaunted Legion of Boom secondary like they have a few years ago, but I think they're still good enough to make a stop when it's needed. And in terms of playing offense, we still have a very solid running game with Chris Carson. I think that by controlling the time of possession and having the ball in Russell Wilson's hand, I think we have a chance against any team, and I think we have no problem going to the Super Bowl this year. I also think that the Seattle Seahawks with Pete Carroll is just much more disciplined and much more better coached compared to Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers. And from the coaching experience, I think Seattle Seahawks should be the clear favorite to win the NFC.
Just to be clear, you're talking about the same Pete Carroll who elected to throw the ball on the 1-yard line in the Super Bowl, correct? Is that the same coach we're talking about?
Yes, that is the same coach I'm talking about. And I think this year, if they have the chance to run it back, I think they'll win the Super Bowl this year.
And I'm just trying to make sure you're taking him over the coach who has Aaron Rodgers second in QBR this year behind his elite offense, which also has him and Davante Adams as the best quarterback wide receiver tandem in the league.
Well, Aaron Rodgers still hasn't won a huge game for almost 10 years.
He hasn't won a huge game.
He hasn't been back in the Super Bowl for almost 10 years. And the last couple of times he went to the NFC Championship, he has always choked the league. And I think that right now, Aaron Rodgers just cannot get it done in the postseason compared to my guy, Russell Wilson.
Wow. That's a very bold claim from someone who's only won the Super Bowl once in his entire career compared to Aaron Rodgers, who has had just as many successes, if not more, in the playoffs than Russell Wilson. But whatever, that's fine. You can lay your eggs in Russell Wilson's nest for all I care. But when I want to win a football game, I want to see Aaron Rodgers driving down the field with Davante Adams, with Aaron Jones, with a proven offense that has shown it can score again and again and again, as it did last night in San Francisco against a pretty hapless 49ers team, admittedly. But they've had quality wins against quality opponents. Admittedly, Minnesota beat them earlier this season, but if you'll recall in Week 1, they beat them in Week 1. Excluding that weird thumping, which was an anomaly against Tampa Bay, they've performed well against every other team so far this season, and quite frankly, I don't see any other team matching up with that.
Well, you talk about Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, and I would like to talk to you about Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, who I think is a second coming of Megatron. You look at his size, you look at his speed. I don't think there's any other wide receiver in the NFL that have the physical strength and the athleticism that DK Metcalf possesses. I think that this year he's well on track to have 1,000-yard, 14 touchdowns, and I think that DK Metcalf have very well become the best wide receiver in football. I think he's the second coming of Calvin Johnson. I think that the connection between Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf is going to heat up in December, in January, and in February. I think comes the playoff time, I don't think there's any defense that can stop this duo.
I mean, that you even compared DK Metcalf to the Calvin Megatron Johnson is blasphemy in and of itself. When DK Metcalf is getting double teamed pretty much every play on every possession, then you might be able to make that comparison.
They better start to, or else we're going to torture every single play.
I hear you guys throwing out teams from the NFC West and the NFC South and the NFC North. But I think you guys are forgetting about the best division in that conference. The NFC East is in a very competitive race for the division. With an astounding 8 combined wins from the 4 teams combined, we have to dive into this division. Guys, who do you think is the best team in the NFC East right now?
Well, I think right now, just about every team from that division have a chance to win it all. But I think it's going to come down to which team have the best quarterback. And for that, I have to go with Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, they're not playing their best football, but neither is the rest of the division. So
that's putting it lightly.
Yeah, but I just think that Carson Wentz has put his team in a position to win a Super Bowl before. And the team is also so riddled with injury. And compared to other teams, such as other quarterback, Kyle Allen on the Washington, Daniel Jones on the Giants, and whoever quarterback the Cowboys are starting this week, I think that the Eagles just have a better chance to win the division compared to someone else.
And I get what you're saying about the talent on the Eagles, but you failed to look at the big picture for their schedule. The rest of their schedule includes games against the Browns, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Saints, and the Cardinals. Those are 5 decent to very, very good football teams. And I wouldn't trust my college tuition on the Eagles beating any of those teams. Comparatively, the Washington football team has actually done pretty well despite their record. Kyle Allen has gone in and done pretty well, all things considered. Despite losing a game to the Giants, he did pretty well. He has a QBR of 97.3 in those 3 starts he's had. Additionally, their defense has been sneakily good this season. They're 4th in terms of the rest of the league in yards allowed per game, which, considering the rest of the league and who they've played so far, is actually very well to consider. But, I mean, when you think about that division and how awful it is, they have a chance against every other team they play. Even if they might be at a disadvantage, they have the talent in terms of receiving and the quarterback play from Kyle Allen to win, especially against teams like the Cowboys and the Giants and the Eagles. They've beaten all those teams, and well, not the Giants, but they will beat them this Sunday because God knows the Giants aren't winning another game the rest of the season.
Absolutely not. That's something we can both agree with.
Please, no, yeah, go back to you.
Well, like you said, I think that this division is up for grab for everyone, and I think that this division is very similar to that division, the NFC West, back in, I believe, 2009 when Seattle was supposed to win around 7 games. And I think a team should be able to win this division with 7 games. And there's going to be a crucial primetime game that is going to come down between the Eagles and the Washington football team. And in those scenarios, I don't think Kyle Allen can simply live up to the pressure to perform in a primetime situation. And I trust Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson to draw up a game plan and win these crucial division games. I just think that this Philadelphia Eagles team have a lot of veterans compared to a Washington team, which is young but is comparatively inexperienced. And again, just like the Seahawks, the Eagles were in the Super Bowl not that long ago, and there's these guys on defense that core group is still intact. And again, I still think Doug Peterson is the best coach in the division. So I think the Eagles should have a better chance to win it than anyone else.
Yeah, but was Carson Wentz in that Super Bowl, Leon?
He set him up. Well, he got injured, and he set his team up in the 13-3 record to get to that position. And I still think that core group, that defense is still there, especially that defensive line. And I still think that Carson Wentz, even though he's not having a good year, is a better quarterback than Kyle Allen.
And I can agree with that, but again, referring to the schedule, Washington only plays 2 teams with a record better than 500 the rest of the way. Compare that with the Eagles' remaining schedule, and you can argue that, yes, the Eagles are a better team on paper. But in terms of the schedule, Washington has an infinitely easier path to the playoffs and to win that division.
To wrap things up tonight, we transition to college football. It didn't take long for the COVID-19 pandemic to disrupt the collegiate game. Trevor Lawrence and Graham Mertz are just the latest big names to contract the virus and have to miss time. With all the disruptions this has caused the college football season, has playing this fall ultimately been worth the risk?
It just hasn't felt the same to me. I mean, understandably so, considering what the nation is going through right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, look, I love Maction Wednesdays and watching Jim Harbaugh try and coach his way out of a paper bag as much as anybody else in the country, but think about all that we've lost so far this season. Have you ever been used to Death Valley being less than 100% capacity on game day? No,
Absolutely
you
not.
haven't.
Nope.
It's just, there's so many things that have changed this season, especially with conferences having to start their season a whole few weeks behind other conferences in some cases. I just don't feel like it's been worth all that's had to change to have this season.
I agree. I don't think this season is worth it so far. And you look down to the road, look at the playoff. How are they going to do playoff rankings like down the road? There's teams like a lot of teams in Pac-12 that haven't played a single game yet, and they're ranked ahead of a team that's been playing for weeks. That just doesn't sit right with me. And then you also have teams like the Florida Gators that have stopped operation for 2+ weeks with 25+ cases. What kind of message is that sending out to the fans? With the big names like Trevor Lawrence and Nick Saban all contact the virus, I just don't think that looks very good for college football or NCAA. I think that a lot of fans already have a problem with NCAA and the way they treat their athletes, and this is just like the latest example that NCAA is deeply flawed and it should be changed. And that's something I think we all agree with, correct? I just think that like they should put player safety as a #1 priority and put the season on pause until things are under control.
That's a great point you made about Trevor Lawrence. Notre Dame versus Clemson this weekend, 1-4, obviously the biggest game we're going to have this season
Absolutely.
thus far. And the starting quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, isn't going to play. That puts a dampening on things on a season that has already a ton of dampenings on it already. And you think about all this, all that's been happening, and the players still aren't getting paid to play, despite having to play during one of the worst pandemics in this nation's history. How is that fair to any of the players who have had to risk their lives, potentially, just to play a few games in a season that has been discombobulated, disorganized, and frankly embarrassing to see the NCAA try and execute thus far?
And I just don't know how long it's like. I don't think this is sustainable. I don't think this can last all the way up until like the college football playoff. And even if we are going to have like a college football playoff this year, it's not going to be the same. Ultimately, I think this season should be put on pause. Perhaps they can give the players like another year to play. But I just don't think this is the right time to start the college football playoff season.
Gentlemen, that is all the time we have for tonight. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at WEBN Sports and visit our website, WEBN.TV, for more coverage. For Drew Carter and Leon Liu, I'm Jeff Pratt. Until next time, stay safe and have a good night.